They Lived with God by Swami Chetananda. Chapter 1. RANI RASMANI. God often plays in mysterious ways. RANI RASMANI, a famous wealthy woman of Calcutta, had for a long time planned a pilgrimage to Varanasi. When all the arrangements had been made and she was finally ready to start her journey, she had a dream in which the Divine Mother commanded her to build a temple instead of undertaking the pilgrimage. Thus, the Dakshineshwar temple came into existence. Sri Ramakrishna once said, "Rani Rasmani was one of the 8 Nayikas, attendant goddesses of the Divine Mother. She came down to the world to spread the worship of the Divine Mother." In the middle of the last century, this great woman of India provided a setting in which Sri Ramakrishna enacted his divine drama for 30 years. The whole story began in that beautiful temple garden on the Ganges, 4 miles north of Calcutta. As Sister Nivedita pointed out, humanly speaking, without the temple of Dakshineshwar, there would have been no Ramakrishna. Without Ramakrishna, no Vivekananda. Without Vivekananda, no Western mission. Rani Rasmani was born in September 1793 in Kona, a small village on the eastern bank of the Ganges, about 30 miles north of Calcutta. Her given name was Rasmani, but her mother nicknamed her Rani, literally queen, when she was 1.5 years old. Her father, Hare Krishna Das, and her mother, Ramapriya Dasi, were pious, simple, but very poor. Her father maintained the family by farming and by repairing the roofs of cottages in the village. The children of poor families lived through sun and rain, and as well as cold and lack of proper nourishment. They must struggle from their very birth. They are laborers from their childhood. When Rasmani was very young, she carried food to the field for her father, helped her mother with the household work, picked vegetables in the garden. Like other poor children, she was never demanding, and no one ever heard her say, "I cannot." Her favorite pastime was to swing with her friends on a hammock that her father had tied to a branch of a mango tree in their garden. Though a farmer, Hare Krishna knew how to read and write Bengali, and this he taught to his daughter. He also had a gift for narrating stories from the traditional religious literature. As a village storyteller, he played a vital role in spreading education, and the villagers took advantage of his talent. In the evenings, they would gather at his home and listen to his melodious and dramatic readings from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Puranas. Rasmani also listened to those tales, and her imagination carried her mind high. Rasmani's parents were devout Vaishnavas, followers of Vishnu, a devotional sect, and it was their custom to put special religious marks on their foreheads before practicing spiritual discipline. Rasmani liked to imitate them. Sitting in front of a mirror, she would also paint her face with religious marks. Thus was planted in her mind the seed of religion, which later grew to an immense form. She had spontaneous faith in love for God, and her character was a blend of strength, truthfulness, uprightness, contentment, and other noble qualities. Rasmani was only 7 years old when her mother, Ramapriya, died from a high fever. It was a great shock to the little girl. Her relatives tried to console her by saying, "Your mother has gone to recover her health and she'll be back soon." But eventually she understood that her mother had died, and only time, the great healer, could remove the sorrow from her heart. Besides his daughter, Hare Krishna had 2 sons and 1 sister in his household. Grief and poverty tormented his heart, but his faith in God helped him survive. 4 years passed, and then another problem crept in. Hare Krishna began to worry about arranging Rasmani's marriage. It would require a great deal of money. Although Rasmani was only 11 years old, she looked older, and she was also a very beautiful girl. One day, in the spring of 1804, Rasmani went to bathe in the Ganges with a few other villagers. She did not know that some people on a boat were watching her from a distance. It was the large pleasure boat of Rajchandra Das, son of Pritaram Das, the great landlord of Jan Bazar, Calcutta. Rajchandra had married twice, but both of his wives had died, so he was not willing to marry again. His father, however, wanted him to remarry so that his lineage might continue. Pritaram's eldest son, Harachandra, had died earlier without leaving any children. Rajchandra often went to Triveni near Rasmani's village by boat with his friends for a pleasure trip as well as for a holy bath in the confluence of the 3 rivers. When Rajchandra's friends pointed out Rasmani to him from a distance, he was impressed by her beauty. With Rajchandra's consent, his friends anchored the boat and made inquiries about her. They then returned to Calcutta. Pritaram was delighted to hear of his son's interest, and he immediately sent a messenger to Hare Krishna with a proposal of marriage. Hare Krishna took it as a godsend and gave his approval. The wedding was held at Rajchandra's Calcutta residence in April 1804. Rasmani's father-in-law was an intelligent, self-made man. He had been born in a poor family in 1753. His parents died when he was young, and he was brought up by his aunt. He began his career as a clerk in a salt distributing agency in Calcutta, and then became the manager of a large estate in Nautore, East Bengal. Later, he started his own business in Calcutta. Among his many enterprises was supplying various commodities to the English people, and in this way, he developed a close relationship with them. Eventually, he bought many estates, became a renowned landlord. When Pritaram died in 1817, his son Rajchandra inherited 650,000 rupees in cash and a vast amount of property. Wealth begets wealth. It is said that Rajchandra earned 50,000 rupees in one day at an auction. Like his father, Rajchandra was a very successful man, but he always consulted his intelligent wife before making any decisions. Although Rasmani had very little education, Rajchandra greatly admired and appreciated his wife's perception, common sense, tactfulness, humility. Wealth generally makes a person proud and haughty, but the simple village girl, Rasmani, remained unchanged. Her quiet nature conquered the hearts of the whole household. She served her husband, supervised the kitchen work and other household activities, performed worship, spiritual discipline, just as she had done at her village home. Instead of hoarding their vast wealth, Rajchandra and Rasmani undertook many charitable projects. Their hearts cried out for their poor, the miserable, the distressed. In 1823, when many areas in Bengal were devastated by floods, Rasmani spent money liberally to feed and house the afflicted. In that same year, her father died. When she went to the Ganges to perform certain religious rites in connection with his death, she noticed the terrible condition of the bathing ghat. She then asked her husband to construct a new ghat and also a road for the people. Lord Bentinck, Governor General of India, gave Rajchandra permission for the project, and thus Babu Ghat and Babu Road, now Rani Rasmani Road, were built. Rajchandra had another bathing ghat constructed at Ahirtola in the western part of Calcutta in memory of his mother. He also founded a home for the dying at Nimtala at Rasmani's request. The couple also donated 10,000 rupees for the improvement of the government library, arranged for a free ferry to cross the Belia Ghata Canal, and in Talpukur, a village 14 miles north of Calcutta, they had a large pond dug to alleviate the water scarcity. Rajchandra was known for his truthfulness as well as his generosity. At the request of his brother-in-law, he once promised to lend 100,000 rupees to an English merchant. That night, he heard that the company was going to be liquidated, and the merchant would therefore have to return to England. But in the morning, when the merchant came to him for the money, Rajchandra gave it to him. Someone asked him why he did not refuse when he knew of the merchant's insolvency. Rajchandra replied, "I have not learned to say no after having said yes." In 1833, Rajchandra was honored by the British rulers with the title Rai Bahadur, leader among men, for his integrity, generosity, and philanthropic activities. Truly, he was one of the elite of Calcutta society in his day. Among his close friends were Prince Dwarkanath Tagore, grandfather of Rabindranath Tagore, Akrur Datta, Kali Prasanna Sinha, Sir Raja Radhakant Dev, Lord Auckland, Governor General of India, John Bebb, and many distinguished members of the East India Company. Rasmani and Rajchandra had 4 daughters, Padmamani, Kumari, Karunamai, and Jagadamba. They trained their daughters in a traditional Hindu manner in spite of the fact that they were surrounded by affluence and Western influence. In 1821, Rajchandra had a new home built for his family in Jan Bazar, Calcutta, at a cost of 2.5 million rupees. It has 7 sections with 300 rooms, and it took 8 years to complete. This palace is now known as Rani Rasmani Kuti. The first section of the palace was dedicated to Lord Raghunatha Ramachandra, the family deity. One hot summer day, Rajchandra was taking an afternoon nap when a monk with a robust body and matted hair came to see him. The gatekeepers at first tried to ignore the monk, but he finally persuaded them to let him meet the owner of the palace. When Rajchandra was informed that a monk had come to see him, he came to the parlor. The monk presented him with an image of Lord Raghunatha and said, "Please serve the Lord. It will do good to you. I am going to a distant place for a pilgrimage. I do not know whether I shall be back or not." Rajchandra offered something in exchange, but the monk smiled and said, "I am not a beggar, monk." He then quickly left. Rajchandra installed the image of Raghunath in the shrine with great festivity. One day in 1836, when Rajchandra was travelling in his carriage, he suddenly had an attack of apoplexy and fell unconscious on the seat. The driver rushed home. Rajchandra was carried to his room. All the best doctors of Calcutta were brought in, but to no avail. Rajchandra died on 9th June 1836 at the age of 53. Rasmani was stricken with grief. It is said that she lay on the floor for 3 days without taking any food or drink. Afterwards, she performed all the rituals according to the injunctions of the scriptures for her departed husband. In addition, she weighed herself against silver coins and had 6,017 coins distributed among Brahmins. She also fed the poor and gave them various gifts. At the conclusion of the ceremonies, the monk who had given her husband the image of Raghunath came. Rasmani offered him expensive gifts, but he smiled and asked for only 2 things: a small water pot and a blanket. Tears fell from Rasmani's eyes when she saw the monk's non-attachment and lack of greed. He wanted to pay his homage to Raghunath, so Rasmani accompanied him to the shrine. The monk then blessed Rasmani and left. Later, this image of Raghunath was stolen from the shrine. Rasmani now began to manage the vast estate with the help of her 3 sons-in-law. But she mostly depended on the youngest, Mathurnath Biswas, who was intelligent, tactful, and well-versed in English. Her 3rd daughter, Karuna, had been married to Mathur, but she died in 1833. Rasmani had then asked him to marry her 4th daughter, Jagadamba. One day, Prince Dwarkanath Tagore came to Rasmani and said, "It would be nice if you could engage an efficient manager to look after your vast estate." Rasmani was too shy to speak directly to her husband's friend, so she sat behind a curtain and gave her replies through Mathur. She said, "Yes, you are right, but it is very difficult to get such a faithful person." Dwarkanath: "If you want, I shall be your manager." Rasmani: "That would be nice, but at present I do not know how much money and property I have, and how much money has been given out in loans. I know that my husband lent you 200,000 rupees. If I could get back that money now, it would be very helpful to me." Dwarkanath: "Yes, I shall repay that money soon. Tomorrow I shall let you know about it." The next day, Prince Dwarkanath told her, "I do not have any cash now, but I shall hand over one of my estates to you in exchange." "What is the annual income from that property?" asked Rasmani. 36,000 rupees, but the value is over 200,000 rupees, he replied. Rasmani accepted the property, and when the transaction was over, she said to the prince, "I am a widow. My property is not large. It would be discourteous of me to request a venerable person like you to be my manager. My sons-in-law are the heirs of this estate, and they will manage it." Prince Dwarkanath then understood that Rasmani was a tactful, highly intelligent, and far-sighted woman. In spite of her responsibility now as owner and custodian of such immense wealth, Rasmani remained as unattached as ever. According to Hindu custom, widows do not remarry. They lead pure, unattached lives like nuns. Rasmani was also following the ancient custom. Early in the morning, she would get up and repeat her mantra in the shrine. Then, in mid-morning, she would sit in her office and sign official documents, appoint officers, check accounts, discuss various problems and projects with Mathur. At noon, she would partake of the food that had been offered to the Lord, and then she would rest. Later in the day, after supervising the work, she would attend the Vesper service. She was fond of inviting Brahmin scholars and listening to their discourses on the scriptures. In 1838, Rasmani had a desire to celebrate the chariot festival of Lord Jagannath and asked Mathur to order a silver chariot for that purpose. In this festival, the image of the Lord is placed in a chariot which is pulled by devotees. Mathur suggested that the Hamilton Company, a famous English jewelry firm, make the chariot, but Rasmani disapproved. She advised him to have it done by local silversmiths so that their talent could have the opportunity to be recognized. When the celebration took place, thousands of people joined the procession and pulled the chariot through the streets of Calcutta. Rasmani's sons-in-law joined the procession barefoot. Rasmani also arranged a banquet at this time for foreign dignitaries in Calcutta, who later remarked, "Our eyes have never seen such a gorgeous, extraordinary celebration as this." There is a saying among Hindus, 13 festivals in 12 months. Without festivals, life is very dull. As Rasmani led a God-centered life, so her home was the abode of God and the scene of constant religious festivals. Every year, Rasmani celebrated Durga Puja, worship of the Divine Mother, spending 50 to 60,000 rupees. At this time, she would give food and other gifts to the needy. Her devotion for God, love for the poor were manifest side by side. Other festivals, such as Janmashtami, Lakshmi Puja, Jagadhatri Puja, Kartik Puja, Saraswati Puja, Basanti Puja, Dol Yatra, and so on would follow one after another. On these occasions, the poor were fed and clothed. Offerings were given to Brahmins for maintaining the religious traditions, and singers and musicians were rewarded and appreciated. In addition, weightlifters and wrestlers were encouraged to show their feats, and the winners would receive expensive gifts from Rasmani. Rasmani was highly regarded for her courage and public spirit. Once, on the day preceding the worship of the Divine Mother Durga, her priests went in a musical procession to the Ganges to perform a particular ritual. It was early in the morning. The music disturbed the sleep of an Englishman. He ordered the musicians to stop, but no one paid any attention to him. He then complained to the police and sought immediate action. But Rasmani engaged even more musicians for the next day, and without caring for the protest, she had the ritual performed with great enthusiasm. As a result, a case was brought to the court against Rasmani, which she lost, and she was fined 50 rupees. Rasmani was infuriated that the government had acted against a religious observance. She paid the fine. But at the same time, she ordered barricades to be put up at both ends of Babu Road, from Jan Bazar to Babu Ghat, so that no traffic could pass through. When the government protested, Rasmani replied in a letter, "The road is mine. Without receiving compensation, I shall not allow anyone to pass through it." The government was helpless to do anything against Rasmani's challenge because legally she was the owner of Babu Road. The news spread quickly all over the city. The people composed a couplet about this brave woman. "When the Rani's horses and carriage roll down the street," they say, "none, even the English company, dares to stand in her way." At last, the British government reimbursed her the fine and earnestly asked her to open the road for the public, and she then had the barricades removed. Rasmani was always ready to help the poor and the persecuted. At one time, the government imposed a tax on the fishermen who made their meager living by fishing in the Ganges. The fishermen requested various prominent people to help them, but no one would come forward to their defense. Finally, they went to Rani Rasmani and she promised to do something. Paying 10,000 rupees to the government, she discreetly took a lease on the fishing rights to the Ganges from Gushuri to Metiabrush. She then asked the fishermen to barricade that area of the river from shore to shore with bamboo poles and told them they could catch fish there without paying any tax. According to Sri Ramakrishna, the great master, the barricade was made with chains. As a result, all water traffic was stopped and commercial boats could not reach their ports. A show cause summons came from the government along with an order to remove the barricades. Rasmani replied that the big steamboats frightened the fish, causing them to run to and fro, and this made it difficult for them to lay their eggs. The poor fishermen were therefore not able to catch many fish, which was their only source of income. Furthermore, she replied that with a view to protecting the fishermen, she had paid the government a large amount of money, and legally she had every right to put up a barricade in her own area. At last, the British government settled the case by returning Rasmani's money for the lease of the land and rescinding the fishing tax. Rasmani always fought for a just cause. It was not her intention to embarrass or challenge the government unnecessarily. On the contrary, during the critical time of the Sepoy Mutiny in 1857, she helped the government by providing food, livestock, other necessities. This benevolent action was much appreciated by the British government. Some of the soldiers, however, were not so appreciative. There was a British army barracks near Rasmani's home. Some of the soldiers often robbed and persecuted passers-by, looting neighborhood shops. One day, a few drunken soldiers were molesting a person on the street. Rasmani's sons-in-law noticed it from their roof and they could not bear it. They ordered their guards to drive away the drunken soldiers, and in the process one of the soldiers was wounded. The soldiers then returned to their barracks and reported their plight to their friends. Immediately, a group of angry soldiers ran out and attacked Rasmani's palace. Her guards tried to resist them, but they failed as the soldiers were well armed and outnumbered them. Some of the guards were wounded and others ran away. Rasmani ordered all of her relatives to flee through a back door, but did not try to protect her own life. With an open sword in hand, she stood guard at the door of the shrine. Fortunately, the soldiers did not come to that part of the house. They ransacked most of the palace, destroying expensive chandeliers, furniture, pictures, paintings, windows, musical instruments. They mercilessly killed Rasmani's pet peacock and other birds and animals. The vandalism continued until 10 p.m. Mathur was not at home during the attack. When he returned and discovered what was going on inside the palace, he hurried to the barracks and alerted the commanding officer, who rushed to the palace with Mathur and sounded a bugle. The soldiers then returned to their barracks. After this terrible incident, Rasmani appointed 12 trustworthy English soldiers to protect her palace for 2 years. She also collected compensation from the British government for the damage to her property. In 1850, Rasmani went on a pilgrimage to Puri to visit Lord Jagannath. In those days, there was no train or good road to Puri from Calcutta. If pilgrims could afford it, they would travel by boat down the Ganges and then cross the Bay of Bengal. Rasmani started her journey with a large convoy of boats carrying relatives, friends, guards, and servants, plus food and other necessities. It was a long journey. As they reached the Bay of Bengal, they were suddenly hit by a cyclone that scattered the boats in different directions. Night came and the ocean was still very dangerous. Rasmani ordered her sailors to anchor her boat near the shore, and then she disembarked with a woman attendant and started looking for some shelter. Seeing a light at a distance, they went towards it and found a tiny cottage belonging to a poor Brahmin family. Rasmani did not tell them who she was, but they graciously allowed the two women to pass the stormy night with them. The next morning, she gave the family 100 rupees. In the meantime, the convoy had been reunited and Rasmani resumed her journey. On their way, Rani Rasmani noticed that the road to Puri beyond the Shubharnarekha river was in very bad condition. She later paid for its repair for the convenience of the pilgrims. At Puri, she offered 3 diamond-studded crowns costing 60,000 rupees to Lord Jagannath, Balaram, and Shubhadra, the deities of the main temple. She also gave food and money to the temple priests and the poor. The next year, Rasmani went on a pilgrimage to Ganga Sagar, the confluence of the Ganges and the sea, Triveni and Navadvip, the birthplace of Chaitanya. On the way back near Chandanagore, her boat was attacked by robbers. Rasmani's guards exchanged gunfire with them and one robber was wounded. She then ordered both groups to cease firing and asked to speak with the chief robber. The robber said to her, "Mother, we want money. If you do not fulfill our demand, there will be terrible bloodshed." Rasmani, "How much money do you want? How many are there in your group?" Robber, "There are 12 of us." "I don't have any cash right now. Tomorrow evening, I shall send 12,000 rupees to you. If you are unwilling to accept this offer, then take my gold necklace and these few silver vessels." "We accept your offer. If we do not get the money by tomorrow evening, your journey will be stopped." Rasmani was true to her word. The next evening, she sent the robbers 12,000 rupees through a messenger. Pilgrims make a place holy through their love and devotion, tears and prayers. Their austerities and their longing for God create such an intense spiritual atmosphere that whoever comes to the place where they worship will feel it. Varanasi, the city of light, is one such holy place of India. In 1847, Rasmani had a desire to visit Lord Vishveshwar Shiva and the Divine Mother Annapurna of Varanasi. As there was no train between Calcutta and Varanasi, she decided to go by boat. Her convoy of 25 boats was supplied with provisions for 6 months. There were 7 boats for food and other necessities, 1 for herself, 3 for her 3 daughters and their families, 2 for the guards, 2 for the servants, 4 for other relatives and friends, 2 for her estate officials, 1 for the doctor and his medicines, 1 for the washerman, 1 for 4 cows, 1 for fodder. On the night before Rasmani's departure, the Divine Mother appeared to her in a dream and said, "You need not go to Varanasi. Install my image on a beautiful spot along the bank of the Ganges and arrange for my worship and offerings there. In this image, I shall be constantly present and shall ever accept your worship." In another version of this incident, it is said that Rasmani started her journey, and on the first night they halted near Dakshineshwar, where she had that dream. Rasmani immediately cancelled her pilgrimage. The articles procured for the journey were distributed among Brahmins and the poor, and the money allotted for the pilgrimage was set aside for purchasing land on which to build a temple. There is a saying, "The western bank of the Ganges is as holy as Varanasi." Rasmani first tried to buy land in the Bali and Uttarapara areas across the river from Dakshineshwar. She offered enormous amounts of money, but the landlords at those places, out of petty jealousy, would not sell any land to her. At last, she bought a piece of land measuring about 20 acres at Dakshineshwar, on the eastern bank of the Ganges, a few miles north of Calcutta. Part of this land, with a bungalow, had belonged to an Englishman, and the other part was an abandoned Muslim graveyard where a Muslim holy man had been buried. The plot was in the shape of a tortoise shell, high in the center and low around the edge, which the Tantras say is auspicious for a place of Shakti worship. The construction of the temple began in 1847, and it took more than 8 years to complete. In addition to the main temple dedicated to the Divine Mother Kali, there were also to be 12 small temples dedicated to Shiva and a temple dedicated to Krishna. Rasmani spent 50,000 rupees for the land, 160,000 rupees to build an embankment along the river, and 900,000 rupees for the temple complex. In addition, she spent 226,000 rupees for some property that was meant to be used as an endowment for the maintenance of the temple. It was Rasmani's earnest desire to have cooked food offered daily in a temple that she herself had built, and to have holy men come and partake of the offered food. But according to Hindu caste rules, only a Brahmin can offer cooked food to a deity in a temple. As Rasmani was not a Brahmin, she was excluded from offering this service to God and to holy people. She began to wonder if perhaps all her money and effort had been spent in vain. Desperately, she sent out letters to pundits who were expert in the interpretation of the scriptures that state the proper procedure for ritualistic worship. She hoped that they could somehow find a way for her around the rigid and complex rules of the caste system. Rasmani received all unfavorable answers except one that came from Ram Kumar Chattopadhyaya, the elder brother of Sri Ramakrishna. Ram Kumar was then conducting a Sanskrit school in Calcutta, and Sri Ramakrishna was living with him. His suggestion was, let the Rani make a formal gift of the temple property to a Brahmin. Let this Brahmin arrange for the installation of the image of Kali in the shrine and for the cooking of the food that is to be offered to her. It will not be any violation of the injunction of the scriptures, and other Brahmins will be able to take prasad at the temple without losing their social status. Rasmani was delighted, and she immediately acted upon Ram Kumar's advice. Transferring the temple property to her family guru, she retained only the right to act as his representative in its managerial activities. Although the temple construction was not yet complete, Rasmani suddenly felt compelled to dedicate the temple as soon as possible. Sri Ramakrishna tells the following story. The Rani practiced severe austerities according to the scriptures from the day on which the making of the image began. She bathed 3 times a day, took simple vegetarian food, slept on the floor, practiced japa, worship, prayer according to her capacity. In the meantime, the image was kept packed in a box lest it should be damaged. But it suddenly perspired for some reason or the other, and the Rani got the command in a dream. How long will you keep me confined this way? I feel suffocated. Install me as soon as possible. No sooner had she got that instruction than the Rani became anxious and had the almanac consulted to find an auspicious day. As no such day could be found before the Snana Yatra, the day of the bathing festival of Lord Jagannath, she resolved to perform the installation on that day. It was 31st May 1855. At the request of Rani Rasmani, Ram Kumar had agreed to officiate at the installation and also to continue as priest of the Kali temple until a successor could be found. The ceremony was performed with great solemnity and princely splendor. The temples were lavishly decorated, illumined with innumerable lights. Recitation of mantras, devotional singing, and the sounds of conches and bells reverberated throughout the temple compound. Pundits from all over India came to grace the occasion and were given silk cloths, gold coins, lavish gifts, and thousands of people partook of the offered food. Rasmani spent 200,000 rupees for the dedication ceremonies. It was certainly the greatest achievement of her life. Sri Ramakrishna, who was then just 19 years old, was present at the dedication ceremony, but he did not eat any of the offered food. Instead, he bought some puffed rice from a market and ate it before walking back to Calcutta to sleep. When Sri Ramakrishna returned to Dakshineshwar the next day, Ramakumar asked him to stay, but he refused. He again went back to Calcutta, expecting his brother to return shortly also. After a week, Ramkumar still had not returned. So Sri Ramakrishna went to Dakshineshwar. This time, Ramkumar told him that at Rasmani's request, he had accepted the post of the priest of Kali and that he would close his school. Sri Ramakrishna at last agreed to stay at Dakshineshwar with Ram Kumar, but he continued to cook his own food with Ganges water. He followed his caste rules firmly and with great faith at the beginning of his sadhana. 3 months after the ceremony and opening of the temples, an accident took place in the Krishna temple. Chetananda, the priest, slipped and fell while carrying the image of Krishna from the altar to the deity's bedchamber. And as a result, 1 foot of the image was broken. This accident caused quite a commotion, as it was considered to be an inauspicious omen. The priest was immediately dismissed, and pundits were called together to give their opinions as to what should be done about the image. They unanimously agreed that a broken image cannot be worshipped. Another image should be installed, and the old one immersed in the Ganges. This decision made Rani Rasmani very despondent. She did not want to throw away the image that she had worshipped with love and devotion. At Mathur's suggestion, she consulted Sri Ramakrishna, and he answered in an ecstatic mood. If any one of the Rani's sons-in-law were to break a leg, would she forsake him and put someone else in his place? Wouldn't she rather have him cured by a doctor? Let it be the same in this case. Mend the image, worship it as before. The simple, satisfying, and logical answer surprised the pundits, but the Rani and Mathur were delighted. Sri Ramakrishna himself skillfully mended the image. At the request of Rasmani and Mathur, Sri Ramakrishna then agreed to become the priest of the Krishna temple. Ramkumar's health was now beginning to fail. With Rasmani's approval, he began to teach Sri Ramakrishna the worship in the Kali temple, which was more difficult and had more responsibilities, while he himself took charge of the Krishna temple. But within a year, Ramkumar died suddenly while away on some business for a few days. This unexpected turn of events was a great shock to Sri Ramakrishna. Ramkumar had been like a father to him, for he had been only 7 years old when their father died. Sri Ramakrishna continued to perform the worship of the Divine Mother, but gradually a God-intoxicated mood possessed him. He felt the transitoriness of this world, and his sole desire was to have the vision of the Mother. His unusual behavior, strange manner of worship was soon noticed by the temple staff. They became convinced that Sri Ramakrishna was mad and that he should be removed from his duties. A message to that effect was sent to Rasmani and Mathur. One day, Mathur paid an unexpected visit to the temple and secretly observed Sri Ramakrishna's method of worship. He saw how Sri Ramakrishna decorated the Divine Mother, talked to her, fed her, fanned her as if she were a living person. Mathur was very much impressed and ordered the temple officials not to disturb or interfere with Sri Ramakrishna's worship in any way. He then reported to Rasmani, "We have got an extraordinary worshipper. It seems the goddess will be awakened soon." The love and respect that Rani Rasmani and Mathur had for Sri Ramakrishna and the support they gave him were quite amazing when one realizes how strange his behavior was at that time, and how much criticism about him came to them from other temple officials. For example, once Rani Rasmani came to Dakshineshwar and after bathing in the Ganges, entered the shrine of the Divine Mother for japa and meditation. Sri Ramakrishna was also there at that time. Rasmani had heard his devotional singing many times and was very fond of it, so she asked him to sing. Sri Ramakrishna began singing, but all of a sudden he stopped and turned to Rasmani, explaining, "What? Even here you think such thoughts?" He then struck the Rasmani with the palm of his hand. Immediately there was a commotion in the temple. Rasmani's women attendants began to scream. The temple guards and officials rushed to the shrine to drag Sri Ramakrishna out of the temple. They hesitated, waiting for the Rani's order. But Rasmani was sitting calmly in an introspective mood. Instead of listening to the song, she had been thinking about a lawsuit. She marveled at how Ramakrishna had known what she was thinking. When she became aware of her surroundings, she noticed that people were standing around them ready to punish Sri Ramakrishna, who was sitting quietly and smiling. Rasmani then ordered, "The young priest is not to blame. Do not take any action against him." Rasmani retired to her room. When her attendants complained about Sri Ramakrishna's insolent behavior towards her, she replied, "You do not understand it. The Divine Mother herself punished me and thus illumined my heart." Because of her own highly pure nature, Rasmani was immediately able to understand, accept, and benefit from Sri Ramakrishna's harsh action. After the dedication of the temple at Dakshineshwar, Rani Rasmani began to spend more and more time in spiritual disciplines. She loved to come to Dakshineshwar and talk about God with Sri Ramakrishna, and to hear him sing devotional songs. But gradually the time came for her departure from Sri Ramakrishna's divine drama. In the early part of 1861, Rasmani became sick with a fever and chronic dysentery. The best doctors of Calcutta tried their utmost to cure her, but they at last gave up hope. They then suggested that she be moved to a healthier place. It was Rani Rasmani's desire to go to her garden house at Kalighat in South Calcutta, which was on the bank of the Adi Ganga, a small stream flowing into the Ganges. Rani Rasmani knew that her death was imminent, and there was one task that she had left unfinished. The property that she had bought in Dinajpur, now in Bangladesh, as an endowment for the maintenance of the Dakshineshwar temple had still not been transferred to the temple trust. She executed the deed of endowment on 18th February 1861 and died the next day, 19th February 1861. Shortly before she passed away, she was brought to the bank of the Adi Ganga. Seeing some lamps lighted in front of her, she explained, "Remove these lights. I don't care for this artificial illumination anymore. Now my mother has come, and the brilliance of her form has illumined the whole place." After a short pause, she passed away, saying, "Mother, you have come." In another version of Rani Rasmani's death, it is said that just before she passed away, all the lights of the Kalighat temple were blown out by a strong gust of wind, and then the Divine Mother appeared to her.